The first scream didn't come from the engine. It came from a 5-year-old girl clutching a red toy airplane at the edge of Gate 27, her small voice cutting through the airport's constant hum like a crack of lightning. "Don't get on that plane," she cried, tears running down her cheeks. "It's going to fall." People turned, annoyed, curious, then dismissive. Children said strange things all the time. Planes didn't just fall. Maya had never been afraid of airports before. She loved watching planes glide across the sky like silver birds and loved counting the windows as they taxied past. But that morning, something inside her twisted the moment she saw Flight 918's tail through the glass. Her chest hurt in a way she didn't have words for. She saw the plane burning, broken against dark water, heard screams she had never heard before. She didn't understand what a crash was, only that something terrible was about to happen and that people she didn't know were about to disappear. Her mother, Sarah, knelt quickly, embarrassed by the stares. Sarah was a nurse, practical to the bone, trained to separate emotion from reality. "Maya, sweetheart," she whispered, forcing a smile, "you're tired. We talked about this. Daddy will be fine. It's just a plane." She tried to pull Maya closer, but the child stiffened, eyes locked on the gate door. A man in a suit rolled his eyes as he passed. An elderly woman shook her head softly. The gate agent frowned, already stressed by a delayed boarding announcement. No one saw fear. They saw a tantrum. Maya grabbed her mother's sleeve with surprising strength. "Please, Mama," she said, her voice breaking. "The plane is sick. It's going to hurt everyone. Tell them to stop." Sarah felt a chill despite herself. The words were wrong somehow, too specific for a child who had never even been on a plane. Still, logic took over. Children absorb things from cartoons, overheard conversations, nightmares. Fear was contagious, and Sarah refused to let it control her family. She kissed Maya's forehead, lifted her into her arms, and turned away from the gate. Maya screamed as her father, Daniel, appeared from the security checkpoint, waving with relief. He was flying out for a short business trip, one night only. Maya's scream stopped him mid-step. "What's going on?" he asked, concern flashing across his face. "She doesn't want you to fly," Sarah said quickly, trying to sound light. "Big feelings." Daniel crouched down, meeting Maya at eye level. He had always been the softer one. "Hey, pumpkin," he said gently. "What's wrong?" Maya pressed her small hands to his chest, right over his heart. "Don't go," she whispered. "If you go, the sky will be angry." Daniel laughed softly, but the laugh faltered when he saw her eyes. They were not playful. They were terrified. "Hey," he said, brushing her hair back. "Planes are safe. Daddy will be back before you even miss me." She shook her head violently. "No. You won't." That sentence landed like a stone. Sarah felt it too, a sudden heaviness she couldn't explain. For a moment, she imagined Daniel's empty side of the bed, his coffee mug untouched. She pushed the thought away. Fear was irrational. Love made you imagine disasters. Boarding was announced. Daniel stood, torn. His company expected him. Missing this flight could cost him a promotion he had worked toward for years. He leaned down, kissed Maya's cheek, and hugged Sarah. "I'll call you when I land," he said, confident, reassuring. "Both of you." Maya collapsed into sobs as he walked toward the gate, her small body shaking. "Daddy," she screamed. "Please." Sarah held her tighter, heart pounding, hating herself for the relief she felt when the gate door finally closed. The moment passed. Life moved on. Or so she thought. An hour later, the airport televisions changed. A red banner slid across the screen. Breaking news. Sarah noticed the sudden silence first. Conversations died. Phones were raised. Someone gasped. Flight 918 had lost contact. Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. Her arms went numb around Maya, who had gone eerily quiet. The reporter's voice trembled as details came in, incomplete, terrifying. Mechanical failure. Severe weather. Search and rescue teams deployed over open water. Sarah dropped into a chair, her mind screaming denial. This couldn't be happening. This was a coincidence. It had to be. Maya climbed into her lap, small fingers gripping her shirt. I told you, she whispered, not with pride, but with sadness. I tried. The hours that followed blurred into a nightmare of waiting rooms, interviews, and unanswered phones. There were no survivors. The wreckage was found scattered across the ocean like broken promises. Grief didn't arrive all at once. It came in waves that knocked the breath from Sarah's lungs when she least expected it. Daniel's shoes by the door. His toothbrush. The voicemail she listened to every night just to hear him say her name. And beneath the grief was something darker. Guilt. Sarah replayed that morning endlessly. Maya's screams. Her words. The certainty in her tiny voice. She had dismissed it all. She had carried her child away from the one chance to stop him. Maya changed after that. She stopped drawing planes. She stopped sleeping through the night. Sometimes she woke screaming about fire and water. Sometimes she sat quietly, staring at nothing, holding her red toy airplane like a wound. People were curious. Neighbors whispered. A reporter showed up once, asking about the little girl who predicted the crash. Sarah slammed the door in his face. Her daughter was not a headline. She was a child who had lost her father. Months passed. Therapy helped, slowly. Sarah learned to breathe again, learned to function for Maya's sake. She stopped asking why and started asking how. How to move forward. How to forgive herself. One afternoon, as they sat in the park watching the sky, Maya spoke softly. Mama, she said, Daddy isn't mad. Sarah swallowed hard. What do you mean, sweetheart? He knows you didn't understand, Maya said, matter of fact. I didn't either. I just felt it. Like when you know you're going to cry before you do. Sarah looked at her daughter, really looked at her. Maya wasn't claiming magic. She wasn't claiming power. She was describing intuition in the only language she had. Some people sensed storms in their bones. Some felt danger like a cold wind. Maya had felt it too deeply, too early. You did your best, Sarah whispered, tears falling freely now. Maya leaned against her. Next time, she said quietly, you'll listen. Sarah nodded. Not to fear. Not to panic. But to that small, honest voice inside that sometimes whispered truths before the world was ready to hear them. Years later, Sarah would tell Maya's story not as a warning about planes or fate, but as a lesson about listening. About believing children when they speak from the heart. About respecting intuition without surrendering to fear. Loss had taught her something brutal but valuable. Love meant paying attention. Courage meant taking even the smallest voices seriously. And though she could never change that morning at Gate 27, Sarah could honor it by living differently. By listening. By trusting. By teaching her daughter that being heard mattered. Because sometimes, the greatest tragedy isn't that a warning goes unheeded. It's that we forget how powerful it can be to truly listen, even when the voice trembling before us is only 5 years old. The world did not return to normal after the funeral. It pretended to, wearing the same clothes and following the same routines, but for Sarah and Maya, everything had shifted permanently, like the ground after an earthquake. People spoke softly around them, as if grief were a fragile glass that might shatter if touched too firmly. Flowers wilted. Cards stopped coming. Silence settled in. Maya hated the silence the most. At night, when the house grew still, it pressed against her ears until she could hear things she didn't want to hear. The imagined roar of engines. The crackle of fire. The echo of her own voice screaming at the airport, looping endlessly in her mind. She would sit up in bed, clutching the red toy airplane, heart racing, convinced that if she let go, something worse would happen. Sarah noticed the changes slowly at first. Maya stopped asking questions. Stopped laughing at cartoons she once loved. She flinched whenever a plane passed overhead, even if it was only a faint line in the sky. At preschool, she sat alone during playtime, watching other children run and shout as if they lived in a different world. One afternoon, the teacher called Sarah in. Her voice was kind but careful. Maya tells the other children things, she said gently. About bad things happening. Fires. Accident. Maya was 12 the next time the feeling came back. It arrived without warning, on an ordinary afternoon that smelled of rain and dust. She was sitting in the back seat of the school bus, forehead against the window, watching buildings blur past, when her chest tightened suddenly. The noise around her faded. Laughter, shouting, the rattle of the engine, everything dulled, as if someone had turned the world's volume down. Then the image flashed. Not fire this time. Not falling. Water. Rising fast. A bridge. Metal screaming as it twisted. People trapped, pounding on glass. Maya gasped and grabbed the seat in front of her. Her heart raced so hard it hurt. For years she had trained herself to breathe through fear, to separate imagination from reality. But this felt the same as before. The same cold certainty. The same unbearable pressure. She squeezed her eyes shut. Not again, she begged silently. Please, not again. When she reached home, Sarah immediately noticed her pale face. Maya, she asked, alarmed. What happened? Maya hesitated. 12 years old now, she understood consequences. She understood what speaking up could do. Panic. Ridicule. That look adults gave when they didn't believe but didn't want to say it out loud. I don't feel good, she muttered, heading for her room. But the images wouldn't stop. They grew sharper, louder. She saw the name of the bridge clearly now. She heard sirens that weren't there yet. That night, Maya didn't sleep. She sat on her bed, knees to her chest, fighting herself. If she stayed silent and something happened, she would never forgive herself. If she spoke and nothing happened, she would become the girl who cried disaster. At dawn, she walked into the kitchen where Sarah stood making tea. Mama, Maya said quietly, voice shaking. You promised you'd listen. Sarah turned, cup freezing midair. She saw it immediately, the fear she remembered too well. She set the cup down and pulled out a chair. I'm listening, she said firmly. Maya told her everything. The bus. The bridge. The water. She spoke without drama, without tears, just truth spilling out because it had to. When she finished, the room felt heavy with memory. Sarah closed her eyes for a moment. She remembered Gate 27. The screaming. The choice she had made once and sworn never to repeat. What bridge? Sarah asked. Maya told her. Within minutes, Sarah was on her phone, calling city offices, emergency lines, anyone who would answer. At first, they brushed her off. Maintenance schedules were up to date. Weather conditions were normal. There was no cause for alarm. But Sarah didn't stop. She called again. She escalated. She told them about loose bolts she had once read about recent flooding upstream. She didn't mention Maya. She framed it as a concerned citizen. 2 hours later, traffic was halted on the bridge for inspection. Maya sat on the couch, heart pounding, watching the news silently. Sarah paced the room, pretending to be calm. Then the report came in. A structural failure had been found. Severe corrosion hidden beneath the surface. With the rain forecasted for that evening, the bridge could have collapsed under rush-hour traffic. Sarah sank onto the floor, hands shaking. Maya stared at the screen, tears finally falling, not from relief, but from release. This time, no one had died. News outlets called it luck. Engineers called it coincidence. Sarah called it listening. The story spread quietly, without Maya's name attached. Sarah made sure of that. Her daughter didn't need to be a miracle or a warning. She needed to be a child who had been heard. That night, as they lay watching the rain streak down the window, Maya whispered, "It hurts less when you believe me." Sarah wrapped her arms around her. "You don't carry this alone anymore," she said. Maya closed her eyes, the weight inside her chest easing for the first time in years. She didn't know why she sensed these things. She didn't know if it would happen again. But she knew this. Her voice mattered. And sometimes, one person listening was enough to change everything.